Welcome to Point of View Uncensored, where you ask about it and we talk
Let's
about it.
talk about it. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So let's talk about it. So, as you can see, we have a guest on with us today. So, without further ado, I'll ask what's your claim to fame?
Well, my claim to fame is that I came from nothing to being something, or at least I feel like I am somebody. But I really think that is my fame. Being somebody transitioned from coming from impoverished neighborhoods and surrounding, right? And now changing all that into becoming a family man, and as well as a working man. Did prison time, a lot of years, over a decade. And now I'm in the tech field, you feel me? So it might not be the glitz and glamour, but I guarantee you, I'll sure goddamn feel good about it though.
That's what's up. So the tech field, sir. The tech field is something really big that I know people are talking about, especially now that we're in this digital space. So what in particular in tech work did you do?
I work in in a data center and doing inventory, and pretty much it's a headache. A lot of people think working in tech field is something that is relaxing and cool, but it's a lot of pressure.
So the data center, I know there've been a lot of talks I've seen on social media about data centers, about them being built up across the country. I know I hear a lot of negative feedback saying it destroys our atmosphere. And I also hear that it's not like a return on income, like as far as like after the building is built. At the most is maybe in 20 or so employees that work there, and like a whole busload of employees working there. So is it beneficial for data centers to be popping up like they're doing?
You like using AI, right?
Most definitely.
We're living in an AI generation. People are starting to use AI more for their personal as well as their work, and it gets shit done. But we need locations and centers to power the AI to give you the information, because everybody is using AI except maybe the older generation, in which I think that those are the ones that are really making the complaints. But no disrespect to the older generations, but our generation. But
so you say even with the whole destroying the atmosphere, you still even think because we do like to use AI, you still think that it's more beneficial than not having those data centers that's causing all of it to happen?
I think it's beneficial. I think that, like I said, we need AI to empower the next generation for our future. We've seen this in the Jetsons. We've seen this in movies where this was going to come to life. And we're actually living in the future that we've seen. Of course, we're going to need policies, rules, and regulations, because we definitely don't want to be living in the movies of Terminator and iRobot. But I think from my personal experience, AI has really been helpful, as well as not just AI, but the other tools like WhatsApp, Instagram, all the cloud services like Microsoft 365. We need these tools, as well as even the older generation. They use Netflix. We need something built in our areas or in our communities, I believe, to help us power that. Unless you live in a hole and you don't need no electricity, but we pretty much are ran and serviced by data centers across America.
Mm-hmm. Very well put. Well, one thing I really want to talk about, I'm glad we're talking about employment. And so one of the things that I thought was appropriate to talk about was the stuff that we see different cultures do, in particular, our communities, the Black community, Black and brown community, as opposed to other communities, the Caucasian community, things of that nature. So I'm not sure what's the demographics of the employee that's, but I even think about employment. Like, so typically you work with mostly Black or mostly Caucasians, or what's the experience that you have?
Work with a lot of black people. And what's crazy is that we work together as a team. And that's the beautiful part about working for the company that I'm with, is that I'm actually excelling with people who look like.
And so typically, and like I said, I can definitely contest to, I also work amongst our people as well. And I want to be transparent. I love working with our people, but sometimes it can be trying times working with our people, unfortunately, and it can be frustrating as well. And so I want to get what's your experience?
I'm telling you, what's crazy, before I even got here, somebody had told me, like, man, little dudes they didn't like the shoes you was wearing at work. And first thing I thought was, niggas is going to just be niggas. It's no big problem. I think that I myself has found and practice emotional intelligence, where I do understand issues in our community, and I just not the one to play into it. So I pretty much ignored it. The emotional outbursts are just people being in their feelings, and I pretty much feel what they think, because I'm in my feelings, but I'm in my feelings back door. And then I'm not going to wear my sleeve, my emotions on my shoulder.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And have to think that way because our people are emotional.
Yes, sir.
And so we have to cater to our people's feelings, which I do understand. We all say slavery brought us to this point. They've done a number of us. We've been traumatized. We have this disorder, PTSD, after slave PTSD. And so, but is that an excuse for the behavior that we see? Even them saying that, oh, I like the shoes. Is that still acceptable to even say? Like, we're at work. Like, are we impressing people or are we here to do a job?
Man, well, bro, that is a wonderful or great question because simple fact is, if we already know, what's the excuse, bro? You can fight against those emotions. You can fight against those feelings, bro. How you feeling at that moment. Nothing. I don't think emotion should come between business and your money.
Exactly.
So why in the hell, like, you want to risk it all? Because one thing that I grew up hearing, and especially disliked in our community, in our Black community, is that people will say, that look like us, will say, are dismissed faking till you make it, right? Why would you dismiss that? Why would you dismiss something that can take care of your family? Because I'll be honest with you, right? When you work with white folks, work with other races, Indians, whatever else you may work with, you have to make them feel comfortable. And I don't mean that in a soft way where you are, how can you say, feeling uncomfortable of who you have to become. But I really think that you would have to make those people feel as comfortable to want to work with you, for you can get the best results that you possibly can for the current company that you are working for.
So you said make them feel comfortable, and I guess it makes sense because they're a different culture. They may not understand our culture, so I think we're catering to another person's culture. I think when we are doing that, we may not realize that. As opposed to, I think our culture, we're used to how we are, so it's almost like accept us in our actions, no matter where we at. And so I don't know if that's fair or not to do that. Just see, you be a supervisor, you having that mindset, and then you over somebody, which is even worse. And so it's almost like you really have to play a game. Like, and so that's just my concern. Like, is that going to help us in the long run if we continue to do this? Because it seems like it has not been working, what we're doing. And so I wonder if we can continue to do this, what would that leave for us? So what's with that hungry AF everybody's talking about? I know I was looking at some on the menu or whatever. I think that same hibachi, I think that might be a move to go with.
Man, I'm looking at their menu right now.
What you thinking about?
Definitely, hibachi is the best in Atlanta, and their wings is the best in Atlanta, and their salmon Philly is the best in Atlanta. Nothing can come close to Hungry AF.
Let's try from Hungry AF. Hungry AF. Keep going. Okay.
All right, so Taryn, I forgot
we were talking about the fact that we change up between different cultures as opposed to our culture. Pretty much when we at work, we work in a different culture. Let's say we work around white people. We have to do what we can to make them feel comfortable. But when we work with each other, we don't have to do that.
No, I got you. So we'll be bad at our baby mama and bring that drama to work. I swear to God, is that we will make another person that look like us feel our energy. Now they carrying that energy, passing it on, compared to when we had to work with other cultures where we know AR will pay us a visit real fast. If anyone feel any of your outrageous emotions that you bring to work. And I just think that in our culture, bro, is that we think that we need to act or be a certain way, even in professional business and whatever else industry, and think that we can go somewhere with it, when a lot of times we need to pretty much change ourselves, lower our ego, be humble. And it ain't no issue being that way, because regardless, that's not going to take away who you are on the inside, because on the back end of all that, that still can exist in you. But when you are in working environments, you need to work as a team. Y'all have to make each other feel comfortable enough to want to complete missions and goals.
Do you? Pushing forward into another topic, what brings me to this topic of Black on Black crime. Do you think Black on Black crime exists? Do you believe in it? I know I hear different takes on Black crime.
Boy, nah. But I was raised in the streets, so I understand that a lot of us, we are attracted to hurting one another. And it's crazy and it's sad too that we can laugh at one another for someone that looked like us misfortune and glorify it at the same time. And I just think that's like, just how can you fight for black people, want rights for black people, go out there and march for a beaten or killed or abused black person that's done by the police, but yet it's okay to want to hurt your own. I just think that's senseless. And back in my day, my quick story, I was raised, man, to go against a person that looked like me, walk like me, sag like me. But this person, I should want to acknowledge as a brother, but yet I found myself thinking of him as an enemy. And I think a lot of us, we look at each other as enemies because we don't know one another. We don't want to open up to each other. And I just think that we glorify violence, man. And I think we, as a people, man, need to know that we need to put a stop to it, because that's the only way the things that we are asking for, things that we are marching for, things that we are fighting for could exist.
I'm definitely agreeing with that. Definitely agree with that. Just bring me to my next question. I got me off guard a little bit. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think us working together, us getting it out of our brain to, and just getting out of our brain to hurt each other for whatever reason. Because again, we've been taught, of course, we know that we've been taught to hate each other. My hope is that we can overthink that, over that way of thinking. I think that's my thing, is get past that. Like, we realize it. I feel like we're at a place that we realize that it's a problem. However, I'm just want us to get over the fact that we're overcoming that obstacle. And so my wonder is, for our Black community, like, what does that look like moving forward? I know, of course, therapy is one thing. It's so much stuff that I think we can be doing. Financial planning training. I know a lot of us say we don't know how to financially manage, and that's one thing we can talk about. I know people talk about reparations, but reparations may not be necessarily the answer. Just giving you money may not answer the question if you don't know, or answer your whatever issues that you have if you don't know how to utilize the funds that you get. And so I think it's more than just giving somebody money. I think it's really educating and edifying ourselves so that we can be more prepared and be more together as a community. And so, which brings me to this, what I wanted to talk about. So I think, was it Offset that got shot? He got shot by another black guy, whatever, black man. Yeah, it was Kevin. Yeah,
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know. Offset, the Migos. Offset's one of them.
I know who he is.
Yeah, so he apparently got shot by another black man, pretty much. And that just currently happened.
Oh, can you cut that? Because I caught on to where he was going to. My bad.
But listen, you think of that, like, these are our music leaders, so to speak, if we want to say, especially with the younger generation. And so again, you see things like this happening, and these are what our students or our kids want to aspire to be. And so what do we do in these type of situations?
Well, I think that we need to continue to, and please cut that, I'm sorry. It just came to me. I think that we should just let it play out. I think the violence won't stop. I don't really think that, because the reason why I say that, because people might feel a certain type of way, is because we have a system that's up against us as well. So we stop, they still gonna lock us up. They're gonna find a reason and put us in those situations. I lost train of thought, I'm sorry.
You were talking about the rapper there, and how that influenced the generation coming up.
All right, my bad.
You good?
Yeah. I'm running out of gas, so this probably be my last question.
Yeah, you good.
All right. Violence, it's exciting to our young kids, but I think that when they get older, they're going to realize those mistakes. Sometimes, they might have to pay the price with those mistakes, but with that price that you pay comes with growth. Growth will come with it. And as our environments pretty much cater to that ignorance. So that's why I think that it won't stop, is because if we don't work together as a people to build our community, we're going to leave our kids destitute minds. And if you think about it, it's this generation fault like that.
And so you even think with the teenage takeovers, I'm sure you've been hearing about that plays into the effect as well. Because then they start getting into, okay, well, what are the parents doing? It's like, well, why are the parents allowing this to happen?
It's because they want to fit in with the culture. The parents want to fit in with the culture. And I think that's the issue. They want to be the YNs. They want to be out here shaking their ass, comparing themselves on Instagram with their daughters. So I think we're trying to fit in instead of actually teaching.
Okay, brother. Well, thank you. Anything you want to leave? Now you want to drop your socials or anything?
J Marathon, Instagram, Facebook. Thank y'all. I appreciate you, bro. You're a real one, bro.
All right. Appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for having you guys on for another edition of Point of View Uncensored, where you asked about it. Welcome to Point of View Uncensored, where you asked about it and we talk about it. So let's talk about it. So one thing I want to talk about is Black people and the stuff that Black people do.
Black people and stuff that Black people do. And
The stuff that we do, unfortunately. And so the first thing I want to talk about is our place of employment. Now, I work with different groups of people. I work with white people. Not saying that I have had good relationships working with white people, but for the sake of today, we're gonna talk about our Black people because we already know what other cultures do. But we could use other people as a point of reference. But more specifically, I'm sure we all work with Black people. And so just without going into detail, what do you think? What is it? I mean, we're gonna be honest with each other. We know there's a problem. We're gonna be honest. Don't put that on the table. We gotta do better. And so, what is your experience? We just start with your experience. Before we go in, what we think about it and what should we do as a solution.
the number one thing is to restore the family. The family is where you get security from. Internal security, intrinsic security, not necessarily external security, which is validation from a scene or your actions or your status. Black people are suffering from insecurity because they're aware of this history and slavery and the role that they played. They feel expendable. So they're in haste to make themselves seem above other Black people, since that's the lowest hanging fruit. That's the easiest status to conquer. And the reason why we are so angry at work, because they don't like to admit it, but pride is insecurity or lack of surety expressed with protection. So for instance, pride for a lot of people seems like, oh, I'm better than this, or I'm too good for this, or because I am myself, right? That is a good reason for you to feel like you're above a situation. However, without merit, integrity, it has no purpose. So you need to replace pride with integrity will allow you to be a janitor and make a hard-earned living because you're not a criminal. And because this appreciation comes from the family, your mom and your dad are proud of you, right? This is why it's good to have a mother and a father, a family unit, because the main source of your security, so you can work make a hard-earned living and use your actual mind, body, and soul and go through the hard times of the outside external forces of chastisement for not having the status and the belongings compared to other people who are maybe more financially established. That comes from a family. That's why an Indian person can come all from overseas and not have the same Nikes, not have the Jordans, but he goes home to his whole family and he sees grandma and he sees granddad and he sees both sides, his maternal and fraternal side in sync, and they got to have a wife prepared for him. So when he's 15, already has his wife. So when he doesn't have the shoes, he doesn't have to sell drugs, he doesn't have to join a gang, he doesn't have to oppress a bunch of young women. He has things already set up for his prosperity. He has a business waiting for him. So the family unit protects those identities. Therefore, when they're in other workspaces, they feel protected, they feel valued. So every little word or every little insecurity or proving these little small points that are insecure, right? They don't feel the consequences of those. And then they watch us, they play us against each other. So I honestly believe that not having full family units, right? Because the families where you start a culture is where you have traditions. Black people are not connected to any real traditions, any real family. So therefore they feel dispersed in these other environments and they are defending themselves, right? Insecurity causes you to what? Defend, right? If you see a scorpion in the desert, he has his pincers closed and his tail down, right? Because he feels secure. He's just walking around. It's when he sees danger and a threat that he becomes insecure of his presence and your presence. And he opens his pincers and he raises his stinger to look more intimidating because he's getting ready to attack. Well, that's how Black people are. They're constantly ready to attack because they're always feeling defensive. They always feel like they have to defend themselves against words and ideas and concepts from their past traumas or traditions. Honestly speaking, generational curses, right? Straight out of the Bible, straight out of Deuteronomy 28. So that's why I know it seems like a strange parallel, but I believe that's really what it's connected to. Insecurity from a lack of a family unit. No structure, no security, no discipline, no ability to wait. Impatience bears sins or criminal activities. You become impatient. A girl can't wait till she gets married. She becomes a prostitute. A man becomes a drug dealer, right? Or a scammer. Or a girl becomes an OF model. This is the lack of patience and value and security. It still has chances of happening with the family, but it's a lot more rare, right? You want to carry your family's legacy and the name and the reputation, leading you to have these disciplines, or at least express these disciplines as you get older and wait for the right moment to capitalize on success.
I like that. And I'm glad you say that, because it's hard to even talk about employment, if we don't have the structure of the house together. Like how you go to work, when wherever you're going home to is not really together.
Right.
So you're pretty much going to bring whatever you have at home
Mindset
to your job or employment, which is that typically is what happens. And people bring their problems, their traumas to work. And now you want us to suffer with you, just like you suffer at home.
Exactly.
They want me to suffer with you at work.
Exactly.
Which is still unacceptable nonetheless. But, I guess I have some sympathy or empathy. However, it's still unacceptable. Like I told in our last segment, I don't like that we always have excuses for why we want to be rude to each other or disrespect each other. Like that's because we had this post-traumatic slave disorder syndrome, whatever. And so therefore, that's our excuse to treat each other with disrespect. And so even when we think about, because now it makes me think about the black on black crime. But some people say that there's no such thing as black on black crime because white people kill each other as well, or I say unalive each other. So there's no such thing as black on black crime. What do you think about that when people say that?
That would be, the black community has to stop being hypocrites, because we have a no snitch policy when it comes to unaliving, killing, harming our own. And then as soon as another group of people does something, we say, hey, see, they're doing it, so let us do it. But mind you, if you start a trend that's unique, we want full credit. We want to say we started this dance and this idea, this invention, and this concept. We don't say this other race invented stuff, right? So it can't be every time it's the negative that we become snitches. I feel the same way about cops. If you a killer, you a gangbanger, and you doing all this other stuff, when a cop come over, they're a gang too. Now it's really guns against guns, really, because really, what's the difference? Guns, right? Gangbangers kidnap people too, lock them up too, extort people too, charge them too. According to the rules and regulations, they have judgments and they have a hierarchy. So now when a white man comes, I can't be all getting lawsuit money talking about something. He punched me, he hit me, he shot at me. The whole family come in for a suit, pointing the finger. See, ain't that snitching? They criminals, right? They holding it down. See what I'm saying? So we have to make sense out of this, meaning that we have to actually love ourselves. I mean by this, one of the number one signs that you can tell someone, especially growing up in their youth, that they are actually insecure and they're dealing with severe insecurity and depression, a very strong sign is self-mutilation. They start to have identity crisis. They start to not mind looking like demons and tatting their face crazy and just not liking what they see in the mirror. Sometimes you see people, they could be like, man, that was a very beautiful woman, a very handsome guy. And then when they destroyed their face, piercings crazy and listen. So what I'm saying is, when you feel insecure and you don't like where you are in life and who you are as a person, it becomes easy to self-mutilate, i.e. it becomes easy to harm whatever looks like you. So black people, it's easy for them to harm. I've seen black people be extremely safe and gentle with white, be extremely protective with Chinese people. Chinese people could curse you the hell out behind that over some Chinese food. They back, yo, your mother, bitch ass nigga. They do all that. Right? They safe every time they go into work because people want that chicken and that fried rice that bad. So they're safe. We feel safe around other races of people for the most part. So we tone it down. And around our own people, we feel unsafe. So this is the consequence that we live in. We live in this world where black people, we hate what we see about ourselves. We hate our own identity. We hate the texture of our hair, the color of our skin. So it becomes easy to hurt when somebody else begins to press on you. It becomes easy to destroy that same image you don't admire yourself. It becomes easy to put 7 men on one. It becomes easy to have black women pulling out some other girl's hair by the roots because it's a little bit more straight. I've seen it with my own eyes. It's really rooted in insecurity. Because when you love yourself and you love what God did for you and who you are, you begin to want to uplift other people. You have validation to give. You could be financially broke and you could be spiritually broke, right? You cannot have validation to offer. You don't have any currency. So every time someone asks you for your validation or asks you for love and consideration, you don't have a lot of it to offer. It's all a facade, right? So I believe that's one of the number one things that we have to deal with is our insecurity. We have to truly learn to go to God and appreciate what he has done, how he has made us, our talents, our gifts. Because when we start to actually appreciate it, because we see times when it's beautiful, where we have African Fest and house music and jazz fest, where we love being black. You'll see all these different people. Not one fight happens. It could be the most buff dude. It could have gangbangers there. You have drug dealers there, whatever. But we love being black so much. What happens? We all just do the same music, not one fight. Kids everywhere. Haven't we been in multiple environments? And then you switch the music, you switch the mindset, you switch, and you see crabs in a bucket. You know what I'm saying? The people with the most weed and the dudes with the most chains ready to kill each other. You go to a jazz fest, people are dressed in long gowns and some artsy clothes, maybe at a thrift store, and they show more love than you ever seen. See that? Because it wasn't rooted in their external quality, it was rooted in their mindset. Grateful to be black. And see, they don't want to hurt no another black man. They make way for them. See what I'm saying? That's what it is. When you get around a few that are satisfied with how God made it makes a huge difference. You know, they got some different beliefs like Ifa or whatever, right? They don't even have to be a Christian, even though I'm a Christian. You'll see that if they're happy with how God made them and who they are, they go back to whatever they call their roots are. You start to see they come together for times like that, sell, make money, businesses, selling shea butter, right? Dancing, singing, showing their talents, feeling safe. And it's an amazing thing to be, right? That energy. But again, that comes from a culture, and that culture comes from families. Most of the time, aren't there families there, right? For the most part, when you see a child, there's a mother and a father in those environments. Safety, right? Secure, right? You see the family, right? People who want to keep it protected. Because what's the number one reason why people don't go too far? Yeah, if you pay attention to the music is also, music can be considered biblically witchcraft, depending on what you're repeating. With spirit, you're recycling. With spirit, you're summoning. So if it's not the spirit of God, it's the spirit of Satan, the opposite of his commandments, right? He says to love thy neighbor. You say you looking for your haters, right? He says to not worship the money, right? And keep the Sabbath holy. He's giving an example, meaning rest from your works. You say, well, I don't rest from my works. I'm always going to be chasing that bag. I'm always going to get to this money. I don't never sleep, right? It says honor your mother and your father. Your music says F your daddy, right? It's just everything that God is teaching about, right? You have ministers of Satan telling you to do the opposite. So they're summoning a different spirit. And with that being said, you lose the value you have for yourself. If you ever did have it in the first place, right? You might have been raised in a situation, sometimes we're raised in these environments, unprotected, you know what I'm saying? Where, our mother's doing the best that she can do, but we're not protected. A lot of us are manipulated in our youth, where some of us are molested, some of us are in foster care. So many things are happening because mommy can only see one angle or one perspective. But as far as having the protection and the security of the family, that comes from a father. So she does the best she can do with the knowledge she has, especially with raising sons. But again, a lot of them become emotionally detached, and they only know how to resolve things by anger and aggression. So we have to consistently readjust ourselves to the ideas that we're not seen as less than because we feel less than, because sometimes we destroy opportunities in our own minds. We are the victims, and the victims never have to change. The perpetrator does. So if we're the victims at all times, then we never have to change. Even when someone else is attacking us that looks just like us, or we're doing the attacking, we still become victims, or we play victim, right? And the music has a lot to do with that. I'm not saying, although it's supposed to be for entertainment purposes, people take these things to heart. I recently wound up, getting into a fight, right? Because a young man decided that he wanted to take these songs to heart, right? And what happens is I become a liability, to his pride, for no reason, right? Because I'm existing in the same realm in close proximity as a black man. He doesn't want to deal with white people. He doesn't want to deal with Asians. He sees me and he decides that he wants to attack me, right? All because he's influenced by songs and a culture that promotes that black lives are expendable. If something happens to this black man, do not snitch. You better not snitch. Better not be nobody in private custody or private protection for assisting someone in finding the perpetrator of the crime. Right? It's all these rules that no other race has to use, right? If a black man and a white man gets into a fight, that black man better never go to jail, right? Or he better never go into court, or he better never sit on the stand. He better just walk off like nothing happens. However, a white man and his white family will support him sitting on the stand and saying that this guy is a monster that attacked me, right? Although they could have been playing the same exact game, right? One culture is allowed to protect them. There's not only the family, there's the social environment, and then you also have the court system and then the police force. So you have all these things assisting him, and the black man, he better do it himself or find some underarmed group of men who also believe they can conquer with pure brute force as a minority against a majority. You know, it's not logical. Right? You have to outsmart. Brute force does not work against wisdom and tactics and training. So that's why they get conquered every time. But long story short, I know these things don't seem like they're intertwined and interconnected, but they very much are. Right? They're very mature. You know, a lot of the times we treat each other how we feel about each other, how we feel about ourselves, right? And we find every other life more valuable than a black life, even dogs, right? Pit bulls have more value than a black life. I see men cry with pit bulls for days and then recover. Black life is taken and and they'll pull off some liquors, they RP and miss them.
And so two things that came to mind for what you were just saying is music and the system itself is pretty much playing a role of everything of what black people mean. Let's just be honest. Like this time from the music alone, like I just read on the news, Offset from Amigos got shot by another rapper. You know, what is his name again? I want to make sure I have his name. Lil TJ.
Little TJ.
So Lil TJ is the one who shot Offset. Is that? And do we know why? Is it just because gang affiliation? You know, they don't really know why. It's just the reason why.
Notifications. That's what they describe it as.
Okay. Sometimes I've heard gambling usually always starts it as well. Again, I mean, and let's just not forget one of his group members got killed. I think he was gambling. It was because of gambling. I can't remember what it was, the reason was, but I mean, this is a renowned group in the music industry when it comes to rapping. And when you see other people getting shot and killed, I mean, it's almost wondering like why we continue to play this music when it can continue to tarnish our community.
Because pride is power, right? And like I said, pride is defended insecurity, right? So, yeah, a lot of the times with gambling is something that you'll see that happens in a lot of cultures where people don't like to lose, especially games of chance. It just seems like you're getting robbed. But in general, in the black culture, again, it seems like one of the easiest victims to have is a black victim. So if anybody's life is worth less than the money you just lost, it's going to be a black person, especially because you feel like you have a better chance of getting away with it. You feel like the culture allows you to feel like you a tough guy and that you're allowed to, if you have to, diminish someone else's existence because the way you're feeling, that high emotion, these emotional imbalances that's running through the black community, which is a lot of men who are physically capable but have a mind full of estrogen, right? Just hypersensitive and This is what happens if we was to give women power, right? How a lot of times how we are so dysfunctional to do things like that over gambling, over money, and pride and making standpoints, making a statement, wanting to live out your lyrics, wanting to prove a point to a crowd who doesn't really care, who care less, they just need more entertainment. The issue with this is that it's always, you could be next. That leads to paranoia because you gotta remember, people like 50 Cent, although they might have had a good reputation, you know, when you're sitting in the hospital not knowing if you're going to die or not, it doesn't feel good, right? Regardless of what, that's when you're in a state where you don't know where you're going to stand in the next 2 days, next 20 minutes. You're not sure, right? And it brings, I've seen it be brought to humility in these points where I just said, because your life is expendable too. See that? Somebody thought that it was okay to put on a shot. That's intentional, right? So and mind you, no one's going to go to jail for that, right? And it's fine because that's the lifestyle that they chose. But I'm giving 50 Cent as an example that although you could have a reputation and money in X, Y, Z, you're not safe because you're black. You're black, right? You're a part of the major problem, the macro environmental problem. So it was fair. Everything is fair. Your life is just, right? That same person would be terrified of killing an Italian deli, makes way less money, way less status, way less ability to enforce rules and regulations according to their opinions, but yet way more protected, might never get shot in his whole life. Living in the black community, where his kids growing up, they're going to the same school. Kids never got jumped. You know what I'm saying? Like total different outcome, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, so it has to be, we have to, no matter what you say, we have to hate what we see in the mirror. It's no way around that. And the music helps you appreciate that hatred. Right? The culture and the media helps you appreciate, the movies help you appreciate their image, right? And it doesn't have this huge success story like these other ones. It's always a lack of tradition and just a bad environment with a fallen mother. Like literally, it's the majority of the major movies we have in our, like, no matter, you could go through most of them, the most impactful movies.
you have a broken family. Even some of my shows, like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, is a broken family. The whole little aspect of it is a broken family. Like, that's one of the most iconic shows, but it starts off with a broken family. Right? You know what I'm saying? And it shows like the Huxtables, or not the Huxtables, the Cosbys, and Family Matters becomes a lot more suggestive. It becomes too commercial, becomes too safe, and now the culture is changing. Now the people, they want to relate to what they were seeing. They don't mind. The one thing about the human condition, the psyche, is if we see it enough, we don't mind it. Even if it's entertainment, we don't mind putting ourselves in that situation to experience it and making the fantasy come out. So you got people who, I've seen it, they could live in the suburbs as black people, perfect family. They'll go to the hood and pretend they had to struggle. You got to go check their past, come and find out mother was a lawyer, father was a doctor. You're like, so why you in the hood struggling? And doing all it because they were so inspired by the movies and the meaning of music, they felt ashamed having success. They literally, I've seen it. They wanted, so just how much this stuff could even force this stigma, this identity into your mind, it gets taught to, and it becomes what you want to do. It becomes what you want to feel. It's a lot deeper. It's witchcraft. This is witchcraft. This is engineered. This is deeper than social engineering. This is spiritual engineering. There's people that who behind the scenes that truly believe in a dark entity and a dark force, and they believe in order out of chaos. And the initial way to break down order is to create chaos from the family, break up the family. And usually when a father is missing, discipline is not expounded on, it's not expressed. The girl grows up to do things as a harlot, and the son grows up to do things as a criminal. And that's usually the outcome. Rather they become reconciled in life or not, that's usually going to be the outcome, lack of discipline.
It's funny you brought up a lot there. So it's funny you brought up Family Matters, which is one of my favorite shows. And I was actually watching an interview on one of the podcasts. The guy that played Eddie Winslow, he was on there talking about it. It was like, well, what made them start Family Matters? And, he said, people think, oh, it was good. Family Matters was started because, we want to show more representation, perfect black family. He was like, the reason why we started Family Matters because we were competing with the Cosby Show. You see? He said that was the whole reason. He's like, they had on NBC and CBS wanted to compete with Cosby. He said, so that's really how, he said that was really what it was, a competition. He said they did not care whether or not, they didn't use Family Matters because they cared about black people uplift. It was because they didn't want the Cosby Show being the only black show there.
Exactly.
And so he's saying, he looking, and like to hear him saying it's like, he's looking back he pretty much telling us to fair the narrative. He's the actor to y'all's fair narrative. I appreciate utilizing, I being that big brother. Being inside, they played it.
Yeah, see?
Like they took the little girl off the show and said that nobody was going to notice. Like who's not the little daughter, the baby girl, no longer on the show.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the point. It's a point. They know to create dysfunction starts off with the family, right? Bad family usually means chaotic, dysfunctional child. Orderly family usually produces a functional, responsible child, and that's just usually, we have the exceptions, but they don't make the rule. We're not going to highlight the few times that it didn't work out. We can say the majority. We know not having a father there and not having a mother in the best position or quality of life leads to just general in dysfunctional environment, right? That we create. And then we play victim.
Now, like what you also talked about, another thing you said, made me think about, I've seen this quote from Beyonce recently. She was saying that, being a celebrity, it's like she's in prison. It kind of made me think of, like you were saying, like you can be a regular person in the hood, nobody know nothing about, any famous person going, it's a rap. And so, you think that it's a glamour, but then you hear from people like her saying that, well, I'm in prison right now.
Yeah.
You have all this money, like.
Yeah, but because everybody wants you for the wrong reasons when you're famous. And everybody waits, they worship you so much, they're waiting to see you as a human, so they're waiting to bring you down. So you're not allowed to make mistakes. So you pretty much, you're getting paid to be perfect, but you're not perfect. You just have a talent or a gift. So you have accepted the worship or the idolatry of becoming America's idol, but you don't want the position or the characteristics of a god. Mm-hmm. See that? You got to hold on to the characteristics. They're going to be holding you accountable as a god now because they're worshiping you.
Can you handle that? Can you handle just wanting to go on a regular date and not being seen, and maybe just wanting to let your hair down, but you don't not have on no makeup? They won't let you. Soon as you make that mistake, tap her top news. Is she really this bad? You don't have a break. You know what I'm saying? And you find yourself escaping in dark spaces and drugs and false spiritual memes and guys just trying to find, you start to crave average or being normal, right? That's why you see a lot of them look like they go crazy. You ever notice that that's why I say insecurity, right? Black people, before they get it, they'll put on as much chains and much weave, and they look so expensive, but really they can't afford to keep up with how they look. Then you get the people who are truly rich. They get so comfortable and it means such little to them that they want to look like Jay-Z with freeform locks, or dressing like literally like a bum, like Kanye West, looking like he's wearing bum apparel, right? They start to literally go in reverse because they become so comfortable, and everybody becomes so concerned with them being perfect. They start to make sure they're seen as imperfect intentionally. Get so tired of it because now it breeds another insecurity, which is, I don't know who I am, always making sure I'm a goody two-shoe for everyone else. So now they're trying to be everyone else but themselves. So again, they're finding themselves doing whatever. So this is the reason why, like, you can see people just don't appreciate the roles you win. People like Beyonce or Michael Jackson, they're having their kids. It's a crime. Seeing their kids is a crime because they're waiting for them to make a mistake. Why is their hair like this? Why did you have bubbles like this? Like, it's always something, right?
Cool. So pushing into the system. I know we talked a little bit about the music. We kind of went into the media portion. What influences Black people and the things that we. But I push forward to another situation that I saw that just happened recently. A young lady by the name of Ashley Janae died in Tanzania, which is in East Africa. She apparently was with her fiance, a white man, 45 years old. They went on a trip, and they were engaged. And then all of a sudden, it was reported they got into an argument, and then they were in separate rooms. Then all of a sudden she died, and then I'm seeing stuff on social media, well, we should mind our business because, she living her life. And then I'm hearing people say, oh, well, when it was a Black man that got unalived by a white, we wouldn't say this. It's like, why we always got to compare? It's almost like they don't want us to talk about this situation. And that's kind of a concern. Like, I don't know. Like, what you think about, man? That's crazy. What you just showed us.
That's just part of the psychological manipulation for Black men and Black women to think one of them have went up on each other. They're both equally seen at the same value as a race of people. However, Black men are always going to have more value in the masculinity. The issue with Black women right now is that in their masculine, where masculine men or men by nature have masculinity, women by nature are not possessing the trait of masculinity. Therefore, it's always going to be artificial, so they're not going to be as needed. That's just really going to be where they're not going to be able to compete, because when it comes to things that are more direct, hands-on, inventions, power, true manpower and strength, when it comes time to deal with infrastructure, et cetera, men in general are always going to be valued for building and maintaining infrastructure. So they're always going to have this unique value, because even the women and children need them in order to keep the world comfortable. So rather they with their pride allows them to admit it or not, that's the truth. With that being said, seeing genders being so mad that they're happy to see people die because they're in these relationships. Listen, relationships are not that damn serious. People are, listen, if you've been rejected or hurt before, you have to move on and learn how to love yourself and love God so you can get the proper love you need, because that doesn't make sense. Relationships are transactional at best, and a lot of them are just based upon the perspectives of this people dying because they divested, or a Black man dated a white woman, or a Black woman dated a white man. That's insane. That should not be a mind, because that means the jealousy that they're bearing has to be working. If you get that angry that you want to see a man or a woman die because they dated someone of another race, just think about that. That's insane. Right, that's peak racism in any way, rather it's coming from you. You know what I mean? So that's insane. However, people have to realize if you're dating someone that's not naturally attractive, they might use it against you. So sometimes dealing with white men or dealing with white women or another race of men or women, they come with cultural biases that they're trying to cover by loving you through them. And because of this, sometimes they're exposed during the relationship all of the insecurities that might be expressed or impressed upon you. So with that being said, it's sometimes very dangerous
for you to date someone without being sure that they like you for you and not trying to prove a point to another group of people, another race, color. But, I mean, they keep doing the signal, so I can't focus like that. So yeah, I'm cutting from right now.
Well, you kind of covered it all. That kind of wraps up our episode of Point of View Uncensored. And I just want to end off on this final point to our Black community. You know, we talk about the things that we do, but let's just move past that and actually let's try to do better for one another, treat each other, you know, loving one another more importantly. And I believe if we can continue to have that type of mindset, I think everything else will follow. So here we go. Here's the next edition or the new edition of Point of View Uncensored, where you ask about it and we talk about it.
So
let's talk about it. Let's go.